Oops. Okay, kids, it's time for another riveting video by your favorite faceless homesteader. And it's mainly because so many hours in the day now. I mean, it starts getting light out at 6 o'clock in the morning and doesn't start really getting dark till about 10. So all of the chores I have don't take all that much time. You know, a couple months ago I was rushing just to get the normal stuff done. The snow is really going to heck, but here's what I thought we would do is there's my Polaris snowmobile, which is my workhorse, and it's the type of machine you should have if you decide that this is what you really want to do. I'm going to give you a little lesson here in what type of machine to buy if you can, and if you can't, and I know all about that part because I'm a poor homesteader and it takes a while to get everything lined up. Sorry, the snow's going to heck on me. That sometimes you have to do with less first before you build up. But this is my main snowmobile, and as you guys probably know from watching the videos, I spend more time traveling on a snowmobile and an ATV than I do a truck or a car. In fact, I take my Suburban off the road entirely in the wintertime. I may not do that next winter, but for the most part, you know, from late September to the end of May, I really don't have any use, you know, for a road vehicle. I've had just easier just to have friends drive me around. But anyway, on with this video. This machine is representative of what type of machine you need for homesteading. It's not a fast vehicle. It's not a touring machine like you see down in the lower 48 in the more populated areas where you're on groomed trails all the time. And it's not a mountain machine like you see like in the winter games and stuff like that, where they're air launching themselves and doing all sorts of flips and turns and stuff. Those big wide track machines, or not in wide track, but those big long track machines are meant for going up the side of mountains and beating avalanches to the bottom of the mountain. You know, that's not the kind of machine you want up here under ideal circumstances. This is a Polaris LX. It's a wide track and a long track. The track is 20 inches wide on this, and I believe the track length is 156 inches, something like that. I've never taken much time to measure it. It really doesn't matter. It is what it is. And it also has a 2-speed cane chase that I'll get into that is really required for up here. It has a 500 motor. It's liquid cooled. That's not the best part about this machine. Liquid cooled, you're better off honestly with a fan cooled machine if you can, but liquid cooled is definitely doable. I don't regret the fact that it's liquid cooled. You just have to do a couple other things I'll explain to you. This machine's a 96, and they've made a lot of changes in machines even since this time. This machine is pretty antiquated, really. This is a 2-stroke, which means that you have to put oil in the oil reservoir, and the oil gets mixed with the gas as you're running it. The newer machines, the really big dollar machines, are the big 4-stroke machines, and that's just like running a car or a truck. You don't, you know, you got an oil pan, and you don't mix the oil. It's just they're so much like cars and trucks these days that there's not even a pull starter on them. You just hit the key, and if it doesn't start by turning the key, you got to get it inside somewhere warm. There's no alternate way of getting the machine started. This does have electric start, but I don't have a battery for it, but it pull starts fine, even in the coldest weather. So this is the type of machine you really want to try to get, whether it be a few years older or newer, because these are John Deere tractors. They don't go all that fast. They're not really designed to go all that fast. They're meant for pulling loads, and that's what you want. You need to be able to get your groceries in the least loads possible, and haul firewood and cabin logs and all that other stuff. You know, if you want to have a machine for riding around and having fun in, you should probably get that for your second machine, or a weekend machine or something, because these are not all that much fun to drive if you're trying to go out and have fun. Like I said, these are John Deere tractors, but that's what you need. And that's I tell you what, after all the work you're going to be doing on one of these buggers, you're not going to be interested in riding any snowmobile. I don't care what kind it is. Your back's going to be so sore, and you're just going to be wanting to sit down and take it easy. But let's get into more about this machine and try to educate you a little bit. And in another section of the video, I'll show you how you can get by without this if you can't afford one of these buggers. Now this machine is an electric start, but I don't have a battery for it, and I really don't want to pay $100 for a battery, so I just pull started. It pull starts really easy. This little switch here, a lot of times this is an aftermarket switch, but it came with what are called hot grips, and these are just basically heated grips, and they're really helpful in extremely cold weather. They can actually be painful on warm days, but when you need these hot grips, there's just nothing better. They'll really make the difference between making a ride comfortable or unbearable. Now, to recap up here, normally there'd be a lever right here. Unfortunately, it broke and I haven't fixed it yet. I got to get it welded back together this summer. But you can see it's got high range, which is for normal travel, and that would be with either a really light load or no load at a faster rate of speed. This machine does have reverse, which is nice, but it can get you into trouble on fresh snow. It can bury you, actually, so I try not to use reverse any more than I have to. It's also got low range, and low range is basically just a reduction gear in the chain case, which will let your machine run at a higher rev, but that actually turns the track at a slower pace, so that way you can haul those heavy loads without the fear of burning up your belt. Because if you try to, like with a regular snow machine, if you try to go really slow, that your clutch isn't spun out enough to tighten up your belt, and the belt slips and it burns up really quick if you're not careful. So this really will save your belt, and it'll save your machine. This is a liquid cooled machine, and they can be problematic. And you think, oh, liquid cooled, that's pretty awesome. Well, the problem is they overheat, which seems totally counterintuitive, you know, but they do overheat. So you do have a temperature gauge. Well, it's temperature light, I should say. This one also has a low oil sensor on there, because you do have to keep the oil reservoir filled, and of course a high beam, and then it lets you know if it's in reverse. Don't trust these. Always fill your oil. Every time you put gas in, fill your oil. It's really important. If you forget to do that, you'll burn your machine up like instantaneously. The temperature light, I just have a rule of thumb on this machine, and it's not a problem, it's just it's a little bit of an inconvenience at times, but underneath the floorboards here, you can see that, probably see that panel. I don't know if it's focusing or not, I can't bend down that far. Those fins under there is where your antifreeze runs through, and if you're traveling through fresh snow, you don't have to worry about it, because these are always getting hit with snow, and it helps cool the machine off. Well, if you don't have that fresh snow, and to be honest with you, you're going to be running on packed trails most of the time once your trails are in, what I do is I keep a little shovel with me, and I just shovel snow up onto my running boards here, and that takes care of the problem. It's just I just do it every couple miles, just out of habit. And while it can be just a little bit of an inconvenience, it's more of an inconvenience if you have to stop and let the machine cool down. That can take 15-20 minutes, and generally that only happens on the coldest days. Another thing you can do is you're traveling down the trail, and if you're like out on a swamp or out on the river or something, all you have to do is like go off the trail just a little bit and get your machine into fresh snow. You also want to do that even just for the sake of your track alone. You want to keep your track moist. You don't want to let it run dry all the time. It needs lubrication and stuff like that. But and I can answer more questions if you leave any comments or anything. And I'll probably do a little video here on basic maintenance, because you really do want to take good care of your equipment out here. Hauling it into town, here, let me get this burner out of the way. Hauling it into town, or even hauling it back to your cabin, is just a rip-roaring pain in the butt if you break down away from home. It's not a matter of calling AAA. You got to find a friend you know, or a neighbor or something like that has got a machine big enough to pull you into town or back to the cabin. So it's a big deal. Maintenance is very important out here. But I'm going to shut this thing off and start working on phase 2 of this video, which is going to be the machine you don't want but you may end up with, because I started out here with a machine that's totally different from this. Much different technology and much older, and I got by with it, and you can. But if you have the means, get the best machine you can, and it should, like I said, it should have a 2-speed chain case and be a wide track. That's the most important thing I would recommend to you. If you're going to be like hauling groceries and gasoline and logs and stuff like that, just put your money into the equipment. It'll pay for itself immediately. You know, since I grabbed the rifle, that squirrel just totally shut up. I think they're getting smarter. I've whacked enough of them, maybe they're taking the hint. But let me tell you, I've been doing my best to protect my cabin against bears breaking in all these years, and it turns out it was a squirrel that's caused me the most problems.